Welcome to Big Business This Week. I'm Dave Briggs on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Elon Musk making appearances both in the Oval Office alongside President Trump and on the cover of Time magazine, sitting in Trump's seat behind the resolute desk. Earlier this week, I spoke with the writer of that piece, senior White House correspondent for Time magazine, Brian Bennett, about Musk's influence as a private citizen within the federal government. Take a look.
A couple of interesting things that he did early on in the Trump administration in the first week was go into the Office of Management and Budget, which is a part of the White House, and he took over the U.S. Digital Service and renamed it the Doge Office. So that has a map to the computer systems for the entire federal government. And it created a way for Doge to have people sent out to every single department and start to take stock. So he had people go to the Treasury Department and took over the Treasury payment systems, which is trillions of dollars of Treasury payments that go out. And then he also sent people to the Office of Personnel Management, which is like the HR department for the entire federal government. It has the HR files and databases for 2 million federal employees. It also has information for people who've applied to jobs in the federal government, which is millions of more people. The Office of Personnel Management also manages the retirement and healthcare funds for federal workers, which is more than $1 trillion of management. And Doge went in and has taken control and replaced several of the career leaders with Trump-appointed people to try to run those systems, which normally are bureaucratic systems that don't have political people in charge. And they also operate with safeguards to protect personal privacy for government employees. And there's concern among career officials that those normal safeguards aren't being followed, as Elon Musk has pushed very quickly to have the Doge officials move into these types of agencies and get access to databases that have a lot of sensitive information for people who work for the federal government. And there's very strict processes on how that information is supposed to be handled, and there's concern that those processes are not being followed.
And Elon has now tweeted CFPB RIP. How significant is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau? What is it designed to do, and does he have any authority to make those changes?
So this bureau, Consumer Protection Bureau, is designed to make sure banks are operating in the interest of their customers, that credit card companies are acting responsibly and not overcharging their customers, for example. It also has oversight over to make sure that student loan payments are logged properly, and they send out officials to look at banks and loan operators and then make sure that all those things are being done in the interest of the consumer. Well, now the new head of the CFPB has told all that work to stop. And this is something that's congressionally mandated, that's in place and funded. It pushes the limits of legality to suddenly stop that work, and it's an example of Trump and Elon Musk trying to use the power of the presidency to enforce the policies that they want without the input of Congress, which in our separation of powers and the constitutional powers has control over how money is spent in the federal government.
And in particular interest, now that Elon is actually in that sector, X Money is actually acting as a bank of sorts. How many conflicts of interest exist between Elon, his businesses, and the federal government?
So here we have a situation where the world's richest man, Elon Musk, is now operating as a special government employee, which is a status that someone can have for a limited period of time, about 130 days. And he, at the same time, is running all these businesses that a lot of them have massive federal contracts. So SpaceX has federal contracts. So does Starlink, and then Twitter Money, or X Money, is regulated by the federal banking system. So here's a businessman who has a lot of interest in how the federal government operates, and now he has deep insight and access to data throughout the federal government that, if he wanted to, could benefit his businesses.
Yeah, that is disturbing. And many of these have been challenged, including the buyout offers to 2 million government employees. 60,000 employees took that offer, and now will be paid not to work for 9 months in the guise of government efficiency. The fork in the road email, what does that tell you about Elon's influence in this White House?
So the fork in the road email was an example of Elon Musk trying to shrink the federal workforce and taking a page from his playbook at Twitter. When he took over Twitter, he sent out a similar message and incentive to try to get people to resign. What's different here in the federal government is that there are rules and regulations about how you fire and encourage to resign federal employees. Also, the federal government right now is not funded all the way to September, so there's no guarantee that the White House can make to pay federal employees all the way. It's only funded through the middle of March through a continuing resolution, when Congress has to come back and continue to fund the federal government. So there's a real question as to whether the White House was even in a position, and Elon Musk and Doge were even in a position, to offer this kind of incentive for people to resign. That email went out through the Office of Personnel Management. So it was another example of Elon Musk figuring out where the Human Resources Department of Federal Government was, getting access to the email systems that contact every federal employee, and using that very quickly to send a message out to every federal employee. That in itself, there's safeguards that should be in place when it comes to sending messages like that, because it opens up federal employees to phishing attempts to hack federal computers, spam emails, and talking to people who are working in the federal government. They've already seen examples of spam emails and phishing attempts that came after that mass fork in the road email went out. So it's another example of, one, vulnerabilities that are created by Elon Musk moving so fast, and two, Elon Musk taking a playbook from when he was at Twitter and trying to get people to resign quickly to try to downsize that organization, and trying to apply that to the federal government.
Brian, have we ever seen a private citizen with this type of influence over the federal government?
I mean, not as far as I know. Here's someone who not only is incredibly wealthy in their own right, but has a lot of business interests and intersections with the federal government, that has been able to get access to vast amounts of federal data and start to control how payments are sent out by the federal government, and who gets employed by the federal government. We haven't seen it. We haven't seen this before. This is something, we're in new territory. President Trump has said that he likes what Elon Musk is doing. He's a person who doesn't like to share the limelight, so we'll just have to see how long that relationship lasts. I think so far, President Trump is getting the headlines that he probably wanted coming into office, or it looks like he's disrupting the federal government, and really trying to dismantle things that he promised to dismantle when he ran for office. So we're going to have to see exactly how far this goes. But Elon Musk has already said that he has his eyes on other parts of the federal government. Trump has said he wants Elon to look at the military, for example, and their contracting practices. So that's where a lot of money goes out into the U.S. economy, and we'll have to watch and see what kind of impact that has.
And the Department of Education as well. To your point, though, we've never seen President Trump share the spotlight with anyone for more than a couple of weeks. Why does this appear to be working?
I think a couple of things. One, Trump does respect successful business people, so I think Elon Musk falls into that category. He's run several successful businesses and incredibly wealthy, and I think Elon is executing in a rapid way things that Trump wanted to do in his first term, but had a hard time getting the federal government and people who worked for him to move fast and execute. And this is because obviously Elon Musk is willing to push the limits of the law. So we've seen these court cases come up and federal injunctions against these rapid moves, and that's because Elon Musk is taking actions that have specifically been dictated by Congress, and we're going to have to see whether the courts say that this is a overstepping by the presidency into something that the Constitution has specifically said is Congress's authority.
Thankfully, there is the judiciary, but are Democrats powerless here, Brian?
I mean, Democrats don't have a lot of power because the Republicans control the House and the Senate. And so Democrats are trying to build up public opinion, holding protests, and there will be minority investigations into these actions, but they don't have a lot of power in the situation because they don't control the House or the Senate.
Your colleague Simon Schuster long wrote that Elon Musk's ultimate goal and the only thing he really truly cared about is getting to Mars. What is he after here?
I do think that Elon Musk has bought into Donald Trump's idea to reshape the federal government, to downsize it, to eliminate a lot of the functions the federal government plays, and also to take out a lot of the human jobs that the federal government creates and relies on, and try to automate a lot of the functions of the federal government. Now, that sounds interesting on principle and sounds like it could save money, but when you take out human decision making in some of these key things that influence our lives, for example, healthcare programs, Social Security payments, you're going to run into you could potentially run into problems where people are frustrated because they aren't getting the assistance that they've relied on for so long.
Our thanks to senior White House correspondent for Time Magazine, Brian Bennett. Coming up, it was the most watched Super Bowl of all time, with many watching for free on Tubi. We'll talk to its chief marketing officer next on how the app helped boost Fox's broadcast. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Big Business This Week. The most watched Super Bowl ever was also the most streamed Super Bowl of all time. An average of 13.6 million people watched the Eagles crush the Chiefs on free streaming platform Tubi. Yes, free. Tubi Chief Marketing Officer Nicole Parlapiano joins us now. Congrats on the game, on its success. How did the stream hold up with that large an audience, and what was the feedback from viewers?
I mean, the stream went incredibly well. Our viewers had a seamless 4K experience without any lagging and buffering or resolution issues. And they were able to follow the game closely. And I mean, I was in the stadium as we were talking about, and it was great because I was with other CMOs and we were able to watch our commercials by watching like mobily on Tubi in the stadium. There was a little bit of lag in the stadium, obviously because a lot of people were on their phones and the Wi-Fi was a little bit spotty, but across like all of social, all of the comments were largely neutral and positive, 93%, which is just amazing results to see. So we are just pleasantly surprised we pulled it off.
For an American audience that is taxed by the 6 or 7 streaming packages we have, all those prices going up, how big a potential turning point was that Super Bowl for Tubi?
I mean, huge, but Tubi has been on a very big, growth path over the past 2 years. We, before Super Bowl, have 97 million monthly active viewers. We have the largest content library in the US, so anyone can really find what they're looking for on Tubi. And we've just always had this mission to give all access to all the world's stories. And what is a better story every year in America than Super Bowl? And it is about the game, but it is also about the ads and the halftime show and then the overall experience.
With all due respect, it might have been a better story if your Bills were in that game, but hopefully next year Josh gets it done.
I agree, next year.
A little help from the refs wouldn't hurt. What else can you find on Tubi?
So, I mean, it's movies and TV shows mostly. We have both video on demand and linear fast channels. So you can kind of go back to old TV viewing and flip through some of the fast channels we have, but the bulk of the viewing is on video on demand content. And I would say not only do we have big blockbuster movies like Dune, we have these really great genre deep cuts. So what really people love about Tubi is they can find things that they uniquely are looking for that they can't find anywhere else. I mean, some of the genres we have are very interesting. I don't know if you've ever heard of nunsploitation or body horror, but media is very fragmented, and it's hard to find what you really like. And we deliver that amazingly with our library and our ad tech.
Hopefully some people are watching this very interview on Tubi, which you can find. When you download the app, you're instantly asked your age and your gender. So I'm curious, what are the demographics of that audience?
We actually do not require anyone to give that information.
Oh, I did.
Super Bowl. Maybe because you registered for Super Bowl. We did have registration. And you could, opt to give us those things if you wanted to, but that is not the normal flow of Tubi. We only do that for premier sports events. So you can usually just download the app and start watching immediately.
That being said, do you have a grasp on who your audience is primarily?
Yes, we have a young and very multicultural audience. So they are about half are Gen Z and millennials and multicultural, and 77% of our audience does not have cable or any access to a digital MVPD. So they are the full cordless generation. We call them cord cutters, cord nevers. They have never had it. So that's kind of, and it does skew a bit more female, which is why we, had a different approach in how we could bring an incremental audience to Super Bowl this year.
Tell us about the concept and how effective you feel it was.
So we wanted the world to see, to feel seen by a more emotional spot. Tubi ads are always a little bit wacky and a little fanatical, and definitely a little bit polarizing. But our brand tagline is "See you in there," and it's more than a tagline; it's an invitation, and we wanted to bring it to life. So we didn't want to shock viewers as much this year, although I think we did. I couldn't believe how visceral of reaction people had to our flashy cowboy hat. But this ad really reflects our journey as a company, just as much as it honors the viewer experience. We really believe that people have the right to love what they love, and that's something that's a part of you. And it doesn't matter if it's cool or trending. You should be able to have a place where you can go to always find what you love, whether it's cool or not. And that is the promise of Tubi. But again, it does reflect our journey as a company where, for 8 years of the company's existence, nobody believed in ad-supported streaming. No one thought it was a thing. It was, a difficult market to be in. We weren't necessarily the cool kid. And now we're kind of in this space where all of the streamers are in ad-supported as well. And they're all here with us. It's all in vogue, and we're all going to be gracious about it. So I think it really is honoring what people's tastes are and putting the viewer first. And that is really what has made Tubi as popular as it is.
Well, congratulations on all this success. Tubi Chief Marketing Officer Nicole Parlapiano, thank you so much. Coming up, inflation is back up under President Trump. More on that after a short break. Welcome back to Big Business This Week. Time now to bring in our friend Peter Green. Peter, despite promises to bring down prices on day one, inflation firing back up under President Trump. What are we learning as far as the numbers go?
Well, the numbers, it doesn't sound like a big number. The Fed was hoping for 2.9% inflation, which they had last month, year on year, January versus the previous January. Instead, it's 3.0%. I mean, that sounds like a smidgen, but what it really is a step in the wrong direction. And then they take a look at what's fueling it. And what's fueling it is anticipation that things are not going to be as great as Trump was promising. We all know prices can't actually go down for most things except possibly fuel and, a few other small things. But mostly once prices go up, they defy the popular interpretation of Newton's third law of gravity that they don't come down. They're kind of like rockets sent into outer space. They just never come back. But what's setting it up this time is surprisingly things like auto parts, which mean that used cars are more expensive, car repairs are more expensive, and therefore auto insurance is more expensive. And that's something everyone has. Housing prices are not gazooming as fast as they were, but they're not going to fall down until there's a decline in demand and there are too many people who want to live places. The other weird one are eggs. For some reason, I had no idea. I don't eat that many eggs, but the price of eggs has gone in the last 6 months or so from $2 a dozen to $5 a dozen, up 15% last month, mostly because of avian flu, which has been killing all the laying hens in the country. And so that also has helped push up inflation. And the result of all of that is it undermines consumer confidence. So that's why we're seeing prices go up. But then that has a whole heck of a lot of knock-on effects. Tariffs are the big thing that people are afraid of. So they've been stockpiling. That pushes prices up. And then we have, what's the Fed going to do?
Yes. Right? And as far as eggs, real quickly, unfortunately for the Trump administration, they made a show of eggs. J.D. Vance actually holding them up, President Trump holding them up and talking about their high cost. So that is at least an optic problem. The auto industry, you mentioned, Ford CEO Jim Farley says those tariffs will blow a hole in the auto industry. And now to your point with the Fed, it doesn't appear that they're inclined to lower interest rates anytime soon.
No, that's what Jerome Powell said. He said there's really no point in moving anything right now. He doesn't want to directly address tariffs because he doesn't want to get in a political fight. But he said basically we have to look at the overall effect of every economic policy on the overall economy every month and see whether we can lower interest rates without raising inflation. Because, of course, as interest rates go down, people can spend a little more. And the question is, are they going to pay off their loans or are they going to go out and buy more stuff? And that delicate balance between buying enough stuff to keep the economy going, paying down enough loans to keep yourself out of too much debt, or the other way around, building up your debt and raising prices is the whole balancing act that the Fed geniuses do that, God, I couldn't do.
Yeah, and this continued conversation, it's going to go back and forth between Jerome Powell and President Trump. President Trump wants him to lower rates. He will not. What do they do? Ultimately, they may, in fact, want Powell to stay to have someone to blame for inflation, whether people buy that or not. We
right
shall
now,
see.
I'll tell you what I'm seeing is I go for my, bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich at the push cart on the corner, and it's up $1. They're paying 60, 70 cents an egg right now. And that's not even an organic egg.
And Waffle House adding a 50-cent charge per egg additional on top of their previous prices. And again, because of the flu not going down anytime soon. Peter Green, thanks so much. That will do it for me. There is more Cheddar after the break. Cheddar.com/BBTW to sign up for our weekly newsletter. Don't go away.